Welcome, everybody. The Greens Pod is back. This time, we're talking national cannabis regulation, reform, and all that good stuff. I'm so excited to welcome my guest, Kristi Kim. What's up, Kristi?
Hey,
Welcome to the Greens
Susie.
Pod.
Oh my gosh. All the things are up. I mean, we're on the eve of Cannabis Unity Week, right? So you can expect that it's a mad dash to get this project to the finish line.
It
But I'm
really
happy to
is.
have you
And
with me.
what's crazy is that it's already Cannabis Unity Week. I mean, we've been talking about this. I remember being on calls and starting hearing about it in December, January, and we're like, oh, it's so far away. Just blink of an eye, and now we're here again. So in general, we usually talk about all forms and aspects of the cannabis industry and folks and their journeys with cannabis. But I think I'm excited about this episode because we're really talking about cannabis reform in a national scale and
Mhm.
what's really going on, right? And I think just a couple weeks ago they announced that cannabis has been rescheduled from Schedule 1 and to Schedule 3, and I think it set this tone across the cannabis industry of like, things are happening. Things are happening, but like, what are those things and how do they benefit all? I think that's one of the things that we're going to be covering on today's episode. And in general, we want to make sure people are informed about what Cannabis Unity Week is, the amazing people who take part in it. And you're one of those amazing people. So I'm very, very grateful to know you, to align with you. And I think first and foremost, if you can share with the Greens Pod audience who the heck you are, because I know would be great for all these other folks to know a little bit more about your resume, what it is that you do, your role. If you could please share a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, for sure. And, I was in cannabis pretty much like everyone else did, pension some weed from their uncle's stash and smoking with my cousins, you know. So that was really my first foray into cannabis, but it transitioned into me becoming a home cultivator and a patient caregiver under Prop 215 way back in like 2007. I was a stay-at-home mom just making medicine in my kitchen to share with people. And then when my children's father went into the military, I had to leave that all behind because you can't grow weed on a military base, right? So I had to transition my life and my passion into other things. I found my way into accounting and finance, started working in industry, providing, financial support for businesses. And through that journey, found my way back into cannabis, but as an accountant, right? So my work with Dope CFO really started with me saying, I want to provide accounting, finance, CFOs services for cannabis business owners because most people in my profession were like, heck no, I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. But instead, because I have such, love for growers, I was one myself and I grew up in ag. My whole family is in ag. I thought, these are just farmers. I want to serve them. And luckily enough, I found a really great group of colleagues in the Dope CFO program. And that's where that journey into cannabis accounting started. And, our mission at Dope CFO, one of them is just to have fun. But on top of that, it's to, provide great services to cannabis business owners, be their second in command or their co-pilot, if you will, to help them navigate these very tricky waters that we're in. And so, we're just out here trying to make sure that they can be as compliant as possible and do the right thing so that we can be the examples and lead us into, well, now with the rescheduling news, what I call Cannabis 3.0, as professionals, right? Who care, who still have a love of the craft, but are enjoying what they do along the way.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
then, from there, I, yeah. And so from there, what ended up happening was one of our ethos, which you can't really see that well behind me, but is to be a contributor into a dynamic industry, right? And with that, I started talking to people and was shocked at the amount of people still incarcerated for the industry that I was profiting off of. And that really turned me into an advocate for those incarcerated individuals and led me to team up with Freedom Grow, right? Which is a nonprofit that was started by an ex-cannabis prisoner, Stephanie Landa, out in the Bay Area when she got out, and she just said, hey, these cannabis prisoners, they need help. She literally took a cup and a homemade sign, went out to the Emerald Cup and started collecting money for commissary. And that's how Freedom Grow was born. And we carry that torch to this day. And we're a volunteer-led organization. And we're so proud to say 85% of all the funds that we receive every year go back to our programs and direct assistance.
Wow. That is so impressive. To hear that kind of founding story is inspiring, because a lot of folks out there, especially in cannabis, they have that entrepreneurial spirit, but the decision to actually see it through, to create that business, to create that nonprofit, like this is somebody who, got out of prison and went straight to advocacy with a cup and a sign and made it into a nonprofit that now is able to help so many people. So it's a truly inspiring, story. I never knew the founding story. I always supported Freedom Grow because of the amazing mission and the amazing work that you and Bill and all the amazing folks in that organization do. But to hear the founding story is just, it gives a level of authenticity that sometimes you don't see in a lot of, companies and orgs and that kind of thing. A lot of it is maybe with other motives involved, but it seems that Freedom Grow is straight up to support the cannabis prisoners who, should be free. And I think constantly fighting in that way, it's really inspiring to see. And I think it brings us to Cannabis Unity Week. How does Freedom Grow work with Cannabis Unity Week, and what's the role there?
Yeah, so Cannabis Unity Week is made up of about 35 nonpartisan bike profits that operate in the cannabis space, right? Coming together around three central ideas. One, that cannabis should be descheduled and legal everywhere. Two, that no one should be locked up for cannabis, right? And three, that we have expungement for people who have already served time so that we can break the paper shackles, right? So as long as you prescribe to those three tenets, you can be a part of Unity Week. And so, of course, Freedom Grow was like, absolutely. And so because we're a coalition, what's asked of us as partners, right, is to have people who can dedicate their time, like yourself, like me, like Bill, who come to these planning meetings all throughout the year to make the mission move forward, to make the planning move forward. And so for me, that's been a lot of organizing things in the background, getting congressional meetings set up. I know you've done some of that as well, getting the planning, making sure that we have a dynamic set of events throughout Unity Week, whether it's lobbying on the Hill or doing like community-based events, right? So all throughout the week, we have a slew of events going on. We have lobby training sessions. We're having a press conference. We're having Cafecito with the Latinas in Cannabis, the National Hispanic Cannabis Coalition. We're doing, things on Thursday night. We're having a community-based party with Canademics and Josh Alb and his crew. So there's a lot going on. So whether people can get down to the Hill and lobby and suit up for that, or they just want to come be a part of the conversation after work, we have it all for them.
Yeah, honestly, Cannabis Unity Week, it was my first time going last year, and it was very impactful. Shout out to Kat and the people over at SSDP. I think they do a really great job of making sure that we're all kind of putting our best foot forward for that lobby day, right? And so I really thank them for their leadership and organization skills, because my first time last year, I was just down, right? You guys know me, like, me. I'm just like, let's do it. But I wasn't even sure, how to properly prepare. How do I, really make the most out of Cannabis Unity Week? But I really am grateful for the team over at SSDP, Kat and yourself and all the folks that really stepped up to to really support me and making sure that I can really do what I could. And once I knew what time it was, I got suited and booted. And I think that this time, this second year, I feel definitely more prepared. As you mentioned, now with my role with the NHCC, so I'm now the co-executive director of the National Hispanic Cannabis Council. We're the national nonprofit focused on economic development for Latinos. And we're really making sure that, Latinos are being included in this national conversation as the cannabis industry grows and continues to flourish. And we're advocating for Latino advancement, both politically and in the industry. And I think that my work with Latinas in cannabis this is really supporting that mission to advance Latinas as well. And so I'm really grateful to kind of come into Unity Week with this new, different lens than I did before. I think that my lens has always been focused on supporting Latinas, but now it's the conversation of what's going on with policy, and is policy supporting the work that we're doing with Latinas in cannabis, right? And so this year, I'm excited to kind of go through that lens a little bit more. And I like, to your point, setting up meetings. And I'm excited because you and I have been talking offline about the meetings that we're setting up. And so Wednesday next week is it's probably the most important day of Cannabis Unity Week. It's lobby day. So let's touch base a little bit about what lobbying is, who can do it, and why we do this, right? Can you share a little bit about what lobbying is?
Yeah, I love this a story because I thought that lobbying was like this big scary thing, right? Like you had to be a paid lobbyist, or you had to be trained, or you had to be of a certain, like from a certain um, pay scale or like place in the structure to engage on that level, right? And then when I got to DC for the first time, people were like, "Oh no, do you know that the term lobbying comes from the fact that people used to hang out in the lobbies trying to catch people as they were walking from meetings and other places?" So by nature, it is informal. It's citizens like us who say this is freaking important, and they go engage with their congressional members in their place of work. And so anybody can go lobby, right? And actually, you don't even need to have an appointment to lobby. A lot of what SSDP will do on the day of is for those offices who kindly did not respond to our request for a sit down meeting, we will do what's called a drop in meeting. We will show up at their office and talk to their front desk person and say, "Hi, do you have time today or tomorrow while we're in town for a meeting?" And if they don't, we still have like a nice handy packet of all the talking points of what we're trying to get moved, through legislation oh gosh, sorry, let's just go back right there. So we actually will drop off items, right, to them. They're called leave behinds, with all of the information on the bills that we're trying to get advanced forward through legislation on the topic where they're lobbying for, which this week is cannabis, obviously. And so with that, really, you don't have any excuse not to go lobby, right? Whether you have a door knocking and you're just letting them know, "Hey, this is their information back so we can follow up with them." So it makes it really accessible to actually be a quote unquote lobbyist. They're not just these paid people who sit there and do it day after day. They really are citizens. And the vast majority of people lobbying on the Hill on any given day are actually citizen lobbyists, right?
Wow.
And
people don't know that.
Yeah, people don't know that. And I didn't know that. Again, right? Like I thought it was a big scary thing. And turns out it's just hanging out in the lobby trying to get your point across. And if you can't make it out to DC, you can lobby at your local government level, right? So whether that's state or county or even city, you can still talk to and engage your local regulators and lawmakers. You can also lobby kind of virtually, but it's a little different. So some of the things we set up for next week are toolkits, right? So for people who cannot make it to the Hill, we have virtual toolkits that include things like how to find your representatives. So you have their phone numbers, you have their email to contact them. And then we include email templates. We also have phone scripts. So if you are somebody who wants to get involved in this work, you can. And you can actually help us amplify what we're doing next week by calling and emailing all of next week, specifically on Tuesday and Wednesday, so that when we're on the Hill, they're like, "Oh my gosh, our phones have been ringing off the hook with people who are concerned about cannabis."
I love that. I love that, because for anybody who's just like, "I can't make it to DC sometimes or this time, like, how can I really support the people that can make it?" You can literally support the fact that we're going to be in those offices by calling those people too. They'll notice and take us more seriously if their phones are ringing off the hook, right? And I think that when we talk about unity, we're not just talking about unity with our bodies, we're talking about unity in terms of industry, right? In terms of alignment across the board. If you have a phone, there's no excuses. You can pick it up. And the fact that we have a phone, script as well, you can really, really feel like you can learn about what you're talking about at the same time and know that it's trusted information because it's been vetted, right? One of the things that I appreciated about last year was the letter packing, folder packing session, because when we first kick off Cannabis Unity Week, it starts off with the meet and greet and the folder packing, right? That's where you learn more deeply about the stuff that we're advocating for. And well, you should know it before, but if you don't, you really get the deep dive, right? And that was such a learning experience for me, having that time. So I want to remember, I really want to advocate for folks remembering that as a citizen, those people in those offices, you pay for their salaries, right? You pay for their abilities to even be in that position. Therefore, you have a right to go in there and have your what you have to say heard. And so that's something that I think citizens forget. And I think personally, I was like you. I thought lobbying was this kind of like, almost like, the way that it was presented to me was almost a little evil. It was just like very like, oh, you're gonna lobby, you're kind of a slimy guy, And then you look into it and it's like, no, it's just somebody who cares deeply about an issue, who's willing to go and to talk to the people who can make things happen for them, And so to hear that, lobbying was literally hanging out at the lobby, hopefully it inspires people to actually pick up the mantle and remember that they have a voice and they can go up and make something of it, So I love that. I think that one thing I want to touch on is this schedule. So it is Unity Week. It's not just one day. A lot of us are flying in Monday, Tuesday. And like we mentioned, the first thing on the schedule is the meet and greet and the letter packing. Can you share a little bit more about day one and what folks can look into if this is their first time?
Yeah, so day one is, like you said, it's the fly-in day. So everyone's kind of getting settled in DC. It gives everybody a chance. We give them the early afternoon to check into their hotels or drop their bag, go explore DC a little bit, and then make their way over to where we hold our letter packing session and our lobby training session. When they're there, we all get together and we actually stuff probably about 700 folders worth of all of this quote unquote leave behind material, which is basically a nice way of saying we give them some printouts of all the bills we want them to care about, right? With a little snippet of what that piece of legislation does. So we get those all together. And as we're packing those folders, we have a training session. Just like you said, Susie, we break down every single one of the bills that we're lobbying for, let people know what the meat and potatoes of said bill is, if it belongs in the House or the Senate side. And also we give some fun tips like, hey, this is who co-sponsored it. Or, if you're on this side of the aisle, you may point out this thing, right? Because we want you to be well prepared to go into these offices and to have the conversation, to articulate the point. And it is politics. So there is a little bit, hey, you may not love adult use recreation, but this office is really against free commerce. Well, we're going to lean into that fact rather than trying to win them over on everybody should be able to smoke weed, right? Instead, we're going to say protect entrepreneurs' ability to have a free market, right? So things like that. So we do talk about different messaging approaches, everything like that. And then when we're all done with that, we have a nice cookout and we really get to bond, we get to chat, we get to dive into policy a little bit deeper because we have wonderful people from all of these 35 organizations, some of which are very deeply ingrained and knowledgeable about policy. So we do a lot of knowledge share and just have a nice backyard picnic kind of cookout vibe. And actually Jeremy Grove, who is a former prisoner, he comes out and he's our grill master.
He's so funny. He cracks me up.
I think he's like the grill daddy, like he loves it. And he just mans that grill and makes sure that we're all fed. And, his food is great motivation to get the folders back.
It really is. I have like memories, like flashbacks of last year with him on the grill, us in the backyard, and just feeling like a job well done. I think that those couple days It's a lot all at once, a lot of
Yep.
information. But one of my biggest takeaways was what you said earlier, the fact that we have to adjust our messaging depending on who we're talking to.
Yep.
We can't always come in with a like medicine angle or the entrepreneurship angle or this angle. Like, you really have to make sure you know who you're talking to. And if you don't adjust the messaging, it's a missed opportunity, right? I think one of the greatest opportunities that we have with being there physically is that FaceTime with those offices, right? Whether we get to meet an actual senator or congressperson, you're still meeting a lot of the people from their team. And it's so important that they have the best impression from our community. So, can we touch base on a little bit of the do's and don'ts? Because I remember one of the biggest don't, and it was like, do not show up under the cannabis effects or smelling like our
Yes.
wonderful plant. We love our plant. We love to use it. We love to smell like it. But in these kinds of spaces, it's so important that we are putting our best foot forward and showing folks the other side of cannabis. Can we touch a little bit more about those do's and don'ts?
Yes, and as a stoner girly, that is one of my least favorite rules, as you can imagine. But it's not about me, right? It's not about my preferences at this point. When I'm there, I have to understand the mission is, like you said, to come across polished, to come across like I know what the hell I'm talking about, and like I'm a professional. And so I can't go in, smelling like ganja, especially if I'm going into offices that maybe are not already friendly to cannabis, right? Like if I'm in Chuck Schumer's office, I doubt anyone would bat an eyelash if I smelled a little bit like weed. But if I'm in Senator Tom Cotton's office, oh, you better believe that they are going to judge me as soon as I walk in that door. And the message is just going to be null and void before I open my mouth, right? Because they're going to say, oh, here we go again. These cannabis people can't even show up and be professional without reeking like weed. You know, to heck with the fact that their staffer might smell like alcohol. That doesn't matter, right? I can't smell like weed. I have to be the example. And so even with the Schedule 3 news, right? Well, still can't have the gummies on it, can't have vape pens, don't smell like weed. But it's up to us to help break the stigma and to be the example, right? And so we just have to do it. We have to suck it up and we have to get it done for the day. And it is important. Some of the other things that I always say is like, just be authentic, right? And that's like in everything in the cannabis
Yeah.
space, but especially when you're in those offices, it's important to be professional and polished and have clear messaging. At the same time, do not knock a personal story, right? Because at the end of the day, that authentic story about, hey, my neighbor is a veteran who is dealing with PTSD, and I saw firsthand how cannabis helped ease their symptoms, helped get them back to normal. I saw how it helped my grandmother through Alzheimer's. I saw how it helped my, friend's daughter with seizures. Those kind of stories matter just as much as the policy. And so a huge do is come with personal stories, because when our congressional leaders, right, are on the floor and they're fighting for these bills for us, they need arsenal. And those stories are the arsenal they need, because their research assistants can dive into, well, the legislative aspect of this, or, the regulatory aspect of this. But what they don't have is, again, a toolkit of a bunch of personal stories. And
Yeah.
we can provide that.
Yeah, I think one thing that is lost with some of the senators and Congress people who don't get it is applying it to that real world experience. They think of, cannabis at times as, oh, these people, the stoners, right? This is something that they care about. And I think having those personal stories breaks them away from that, mentality, and reminds them that, scheduling says it's medical now. That means we're getting that respect to share more of those personal anecdotal, stories that really get across the impact of cannabis and reminds people that it is medicine. I think when I recall on my lobby day last year, my way in, no surprise here, was Latinas, and letting them know that, there are so many powerhouse Latinas like yourself who are being, they have challenges for their, career development. And a lot of them are professionals and are crushing it in every possible way in this industry, but don't have the avenues to really excel the way that they do in other industries. And so being able to tell that economic story, that women, entrepreneurship story, that, in a lot of ways I wasn't talking about cannabis, but then I always was. But it's the entrepreneurship story, it's the mother story, it's the grind, right? And so I think when those folks are lobbying for the first time, it's always remember that, remain professional in every way, and remember the bigger picture of what you're fighting for, right? It's not just the bill, it's who the bill is supporting and who is it's
Okay.
empowering, right? So that's day one. That's just day one, y'all.
Yeah.
Day two is Wednesday. That's the big day. That's the big day.
Yeah.
We kick off with a press conference in front of
Yeah.
the Capitol Hill building. And to my understanding, a lot of heavyweights come through, right? So what happens during this press conference?
Yeah. So during the press conference, right, we give time to all of the leaders, as many as we can to fit into our time slot, a chance to talk on behalf of their organization on why cannabis legalization is important to their constituents, right? So when we talk about Balanced Veterans Network, they're going to talk about how this helps the veteran community, right? LEAP, Law Enforcement Action Partnership. When we talk about LEAP, right, they're going to come at it from a law enforcement perspective. When we talk about Freedom Grow, Last Prisoner Project, they're going to come at it from an incarcerated individual perspective, right? And so that gives us time to really show how wide cast this issue is. It doesn't just affect, you know, community. It affects all communities. I mean, tell me where you can get 90% of the population to agree on anything, but yet 9 in 10 people think that cannabis should be legal in some form. There has never been an issue that is more universal than cannabis. We always joke over at my firm, because we're accountants, that there are actually 3 universal truths in life, adding to the old adage of, the only universal truths are death and taxes. We like to say that's actually not true. It's death, taxes, and weed, because everybody wants weed wherever you go in the world. People consume cannabis,
They
right?
do.
And inherently, it is medicinal. This is a medical plant. I mean, even in adult use markets, the top reasons people go in to purchase are anxiety, sleep, and pain, right? Those are medical applications. I mean, and furthermore, I'm just an accountant, but I can read medical studies, right? And it's incredible to me that as a mother, we have the ability, our bodies have the ability to produce cannabinoids, and then those get into our breast milk and then feed and nourish our babies' bodies. That is how integral cannabinoids are to the health of our bodies. Mother's milk contains them to nourish our babies, right? Our body has an endocannabinoid system that regulates all the other systems in our body. It needs cannabinoids to function correctly. It'd be like trying to be happy without serotonin in your body. If your body's deficient in serotonin, you're depressed. And guess what? Your doctor gives you serotonin to supplement. If your endocannabinoid system is deficient, we can put the math together. You need cannabinoids to bring it back to normal. But for so long, the medical side of our industry has been like, oh, we're just going to look over there.
No.
And that's just not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
Because, and thankfully, right, our federal government has seen and has acknowledged now that there is medical benefit to cannabis.
Oh my gosh, yes. Women in particular, mothers who consume and who are equipped with this kind of knowledge are unstoppable. Unstoppable. We need more mothers in cannabis to join us in DC or to join us online and to advocate, because this wealth of knowledge and being able to tell Congress people that, my milk consumes, my milk, it contains cannabinoids. Let me tell you about how they're natural. That's another way in, y'all. We're always talking about the ways in. Mothers are such an important part of our coalition, right? Because I think you're creating life and can talk about their particular journey, which so many others just can't. can't, right? And so Wednesday is a very special day because it's the day of action. What I remember last year is so many groups just basically just focused going in and out of rooms, in and out of rooms, photos in and out of, and it was just all day until the very end, until we had our unity mixer, right? Wednesday,
Right.
we're getting together. We're going to debrief at our mixer. And then, bam, before you know it, Thursday, we're kicking off 10 a.m. sharp at the Botanical Gardens in DC for the Cafecito with the NHCC, hosted by myself and my co-executive director, Aaron Lopez. So Aaron Lopez, he is, like I mentioned, the co-executive director of the NHCC alongside with me. He's in it. That man, it lives in DC and is lobbying on the daily. And he's the type of person that is so on top of it. When you have a phone call with him, it is by the minute, like going down. And I'm just like very inspired by the way that by the way that he works. So he's going to be there at 10 a.m., which I'm really excited for him to meet some of our coalition members, because I really want to show them a little bit more about what we're doing over here at the NHCC. Been doing a lot of great work for the past 6 years, but now with me as co-executive director, we're really pouring in a lot more with development programs, because ultimately with our mission of growing the Latinos and advancing their careers in cannabis, what's missing? Programs to skill them, right? What's going to get them to get that promotion from that job? What's going to be that differentiator on their resume? So something at the NHCC that we're focused on at this moment is developing programs to really help Latinos get there. Aside from that, we really are focused on leadership and making sure that we're developing a mentor program in conjunction with Latinas in cannabis to help Latinas get the support that they need. And so those are along the lines of what we'll be discussing at our cafecito, more of what we're doing, but also aligning with professionals and advocates who are like-minded, because we're all about collaboration. Cannabis Unity Week is about that, right? So we're really excited to bring together all the advocates with dialogue about what we're doing here and how we can advance our cause together. So we're going to be doing that at 10 a.m. And then on Thursday, we're going to be having the biggest party of all. Shout out to Josh over at Canademics. If you guys have ever been to his parties, you're missing out if you haven't, because he's holding it down in New Jersey. Yeah. And I mean, I know him for the longest time as being the event producer in cannabis. And all of us are just trying to keep up with the precedent that he has shown, because like he just crushes it in cannabis events, right?
Yep. Oh, and it's going to be a blast. I mean, we have an amazing venue that he has picked out. So you got to register to know where the address is. But we have an enchilada truck that's going to be parked outside so we can have yummy, delicious food. We have a consumption space in there. We're going to have advocacy groups tabling so that the general public, like, so if you can't make it out to any of the other events, lobbying with us, you know exactly what Freedom Grow is or what LPP is, or, you know, what Latinas in cannabis is. There will be a whole bunch of information at that event. So alongside our celebration, you'll be able to educate yourself on what's going on, and maybe, you know, link up with some of these organizations and put your time there, you know. And again, right, another great example of what I just want to go back to what you said about providing pathways, right? Because it's such a big part of the work we do. Yeah. At Freedom Grow, you know, right now, our focus on direct assistance to families, right? Oh. And to the prisoners. However, we want that to evolve to where we don't have any prisoners in jail to support, but instead our mission can evolve to how do we help with reentry? How do we help with reintegration and upward mobility outside of the cannabis industry if they want? Because so many of our prisoners have PTSD for being locked up for prison. And people always say, oh, well, when they're out of prison, they can go work in the cannabis industry. Great, if they choose to. But not everybody wants to be pigeonholed into an industry that they've been traumatized
by.
Right. And so how do we provide new pathways, right? How do we provide new job opportunities beyond the cannabis space if wanted? And so we've already begun that work with some reentry grants and doing things like, we had a constituent that reached out and he said, hey, I know that I'm going to be getting out soon. I really want to be a personal trainer. I'm great at it. I think I can help a lot of people. We were able to pay for his coursework, and he is now a certified personal trainer. So when he gets out, he has job opportunities, right? And so
Wow.
we hope that we can expand that. But like you said, that is where the work needs to go, because it isn't just the advocacy work. It's not just the reform work. It's on an individual level. How do we help lift our people up?
Yeah. I love that because it's not just about like addressing the issue at the top, right? It's like everything else that happens after. And I think mental health is a big part of it as well. You touched on trauma, and I think that it's great to see when former prisoners, former incarcerated individuals are able to make something more of themselves. And I think of who comes to mind is Luke Scarmazzo. Shout out to Profit Brands. He's been here at the Greens Pod talking about his story and how,
Yep.
what he did during his time to prepare for when he got out to become the entrepreneur that he is now. And that's why he's
Yeah.
such a public speaker, and, with his book and his podcast, because he's constantly trying to advocate for those folks who maybe don't have the confidence to do it
Okay.
themselves. And so much of being able to make the most out of your life post prison is having the confidence to do it
Yeah.
and having the resources to find those pathways, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the good point, right? Because Luke and his partner Ricardo were already entrepreneurs before they went in, but they had to stay up, right, on their knowledge. They had to stay up on their skill set. So they had to keep working while they were
Yeah.
in order to hit the ground running when they came out. And I'm smiling because I don't even think you know this, Cindy. They're a big reason why I got into the work that I'm doing. So when I was a little bitty baby, Luke and Ricardo got arrested. I actually was living in Modesto, California. I was a medical patient. And guess what? They were the only brick and mortar dispensary in Modesto, California. When they got shut down, we had to go to Oakland. So so I used to have to go out to Oakland, to Blue Sky, or out to Harborside, or one of these places to get cannabis. They offered it there in town, right? And then they got shut down. So years later, when I came back, when I told you I came back into the cannabis space as an accountant, I happened to meet Randy Lanier at a show, and he was showing me this book of prisoners and telling me about their mission. And I flipped and I read that name, Luke Scarmazzo, and I said, hold, I know this name. And and Luke and them, they know this, so I feel comfortable sharing. But I was like, I feel terrible because I knew this story. It was front page news in my city. And honestly, I had forgotten about it. I'd
Wow.
freaking forgotten about it. And how terrible it is that I have forgotten about it. And now I feed my family off this industry while they're still in prison at the time that I joined Freedom Grow. And so I was lucky enough that when they got out, I was able to meet them. And the first apron that they ever gave me to volunteer had Luke's face on it because he was still incarcerated. And when he got, I still have it. I still wear it. He signed it because we wrote a big old free. And I think I got the lucky apron because every single one of the prisoners that our executive director put on my apron has now gotten out. So I told her, I said, we need
Wow.
to make a new apron with new people on it because I think I got the magic apron.
Yes, the magic apron. It's almost like the universe was like, they're next.
Yeah.
I love that. What a great story. And I love that, like, the Greens Pod guests end up having a connection to each other. And I love that. And we've also had Bill on the show as well.
Yeah.
So, Bill, can you share a little bit about his role with Freedom Grow?
Yeah. So Bill Levers and his brother Jeff are now our CEO and our COO of Freedom Grow. And so they came on board, oh gosh, late 2024. They came on board formally because actually they had been lobbying and advocating with Freedom Grow since Luke and Ricardo were both behind bars. They would show up and, advocate for them, hold signs of them, different things like that. So Bill and Jeff Levers had been doing this work with Freedom Grow for probably about 12 years before Freedom Grow was even officially Freedom Grow, when it was the Land of Hot Prisoner Project. It was just like a name she had made up for herself.
Yeah.
And so they've been doing this advocacy work for, gosh, I'd say close to 15 years, and just behind the scenes, never allowing us to even say like they were a part of it. They never wanted to use their brands. They never wanted to feel like they were profiting off of their affiliation. But we as an organization knew that it was time for us to start leveling up, and we needed their expertise, especially in the donations and the fundraising side of things, to bring in the money so we can do important work. So we basically begged them, but they came on board, and it has been so wonderful working with them and to see it come full circle. I mean, we have pictures. We're gonna have to dig into archives and share these. We have pictures where his hair is still brown.
I can't picture Bill with brown hair. He's always gonna be a salt and pepper man to me. And beard, of course.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, it doesn't surprise me that Bill and Jeff have been doing the work behind the scenes. I mean, that's how I know of them, because they've just always been doing the work. Whether they get credit, whether they don't, they're just going to be here regardless, moving it forward. And so shout out to Bill and Jeff for always being there, fighting the good fight no matter what, right? And I'm glad to see that they're, represented in a more formal way, because it just shows, I think, the next generation of cannabis advocates who actually want to work in it, that, there is a path for them to be more formal, in that way. There are professional nonprofits that do great work, and you can turn your advocacy and your love of cannabis to something that creates a really good impact for the industry and for the community, right? So, and also I want to give a shout out to Jeff and Monica for the new baby girl that's on the way. Shout out to all mothers and mothers to be on this Mother's Day weekend, including yourself. And so now, Friday, to my understanding, there's going to be another great event. Shout out to Jack Gorsline. He's an amazing cannabis and psychedelics and plant medicine journalist. He's going to be dropping more information about an event that they're having on Friday. And then it gets us to the weekend where we can finally take a breather. I can't wait for Cannabis Unity Week. If anybody is out there, wants to be a part of it, there's still a chance to be a part of it this year. And if you're trying to go next year, join us. Get ready now. There's always an opportunity to be a part of it, right? And so I'm really excited about it. But one thing I'm also excited about is Latinas in Cannabis Summit 2026. We just announced the date. September 26th, we just announced it. And for all of you guys that know about Latinas in Cannabis and know about Latinas in Cannabis Summit, you might recognize Kristi, because she was a speaker at our summit last year. And so tell me a little bit about your experience. How was it being part of the summit?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, last year was my first year. It was amazing, right? I mean, talk about a jam-packed powerhouse lineup for our summit, right? It was just, you could feel the energy as soon as you walked into the space, because, well, first off, let me just talk about how amazing the space is, because as we all know, you often go to a cannabis event or a cannabis summit, and then there's like, oh no, you can't smoke in here. Oh no, you can't consume here. And hello, at the end of it, we're professionals, but we're stoner girlies. We want to medicate. Yeah. It's like why we choose to do business in this space in the first place, because we're so passionate about the plant. So the event space that Susie chooses is amazing because it's consumption friendly, because it's outdoors, and we can sit there and enjoy the fresh air, enjoy medicating, and listening to these amazing women give us advice in so many different aspects, whether it's Emodinda Martinez and, healing your inner mija. That was like an amazing session, right?
I know.
With, the financial literacy classes, like Underwalker coming on the panel that I was on and just dropping gym after gym after gym for these girls. I mean, I was on with Claudia from Heavy Hitters, Monica from Rolling with Mamacita. I mean, these women are so dynamic in what they do, right? They come from all different backgrounds with all different skill sets, and they have become powerhouse entrepreneurs that are just inspiring women to be them best selves and unapologetically be authentic while doing it, not fitting into a mold, not trying to be a corporate Barbie who has to act a certain way, and really comes from a scarcity mindset of, oh, there's only one woman allowed at that level. Instead, these women are like, no, I'm at this level, and all my sisters are at this level too, and I'm bringing them along with me. And that's an amazing space to be in, especially if you've grown up. Like, I grew up in a community where the girls were kind of catty,
Mm.
you know? And when I got into business, it was more of the same because, again, in a male dominated industry, there can only be one woman that could fill that seat, right? For
Mm.
diversity. And then
No.
after that, it was like, there's too many of them. Well, in cannabis, I've been so lucky to find a sisterhood here of women that is ready to just empower and uplift each other.
Yeah.
And Latinas in Cannabis Summit is just like the perfect example of all of that coming together, and women from all over the country coming together, sharing knowledge, learning from each other freely. And one of my favorite things from our session
Yeah.
last year was asking women in the audience to make goals. And one of them was Cindy
Yes.
B from Pink Honey Smoke. And she stood up, and I encouraged everyone, make a goal and then share it with us. And she stood up, she raised her hand and said, I have a goal and I want to share it. She said, I want to be in 9 more dispensaries, right? That was her goal that she wanted to hit in the next year. Walker herself was like, well, hey, girl, do you know that I have dispensaries in Oklahoma? They can carry your point. And by the time we walked off that stage, she already had a connection, like her goal reached, right? Because she took the opportunity to take up space and to speak up for what she needed, and her sisters answered, and they showed up for her. And that's what I love seeing. And that's what I love so much about Latinas in Cannabis and the whole summit, is that we were able to put words into action.
Oh my God, you have no idea how much this means to me, Kristi. Because like, you know, when I produce this each year, like it is my hope that, you know, the connection can lead to something. And I have heard of so many women leave the summit with new jobs, new connections, new placements. And to hear, I didn't even know about that, you know, with regarding Pink Honey Smoke and Thunder Walker. And I think that's another beautiful thing. There's so many Latinas with brands and products, and there's so many Latinas with shops and dispensaries. And hello, there should be business there. And I love whatever I can do to help facilitate this magic happening. Thank you again for joining us. We hope to see you again this year. Whole new lineup, y'all. You know how it goes. All new faces, all new workshops, everything's being put together as we speak, and the power, I feel it. Of course, we're going to have our dinner the day before, and I just can't wait. So many great things. Anything else we want to share with folks ahead of Cannabis Unity Week that folks need to know?
Yeah, get involved. Go to decriminalizenow.org, sign up, right? Whether you can be there or not, we will send you the toolkit to help, right? Whether that's virtually, on the Hill, just so you can get information throughout the year. Definitely do that. We're going to email you back the lineup of the events. So if you are in DC, even if you can't make it to the lobbies, you can come by the mixers, Hall on Wednesday. You can come by our industry meetup that's going to happen at Higher Ground DC, which is a dispensary and consumption lounge in the district, on Thursday afternoon. You can come by the Cafecito at the Botanical Gardens on Thursday morning. On Thursday evening, you could hit the Canademics party. You can see that Thursday is our community day.
Yeah.
I will say there may even be a fun little surprise if you hit up the Canademics party, because one of our formerly incarcerated individuals, Harold Morris, his father is amazing at, you know, growing, and he's going to come in and share some knowledge and maybe some little take home favors from his nursery so you can grow your own medicine, things like that. So definitely come out, enjoy, mingle with people. We're going to be there, and it's going to be a vibe.
I already know it's going to be amazing. I cannot wait to see so many advocates together in one room, just enjoying the plant in so many different ways and enjoying some great food. Honestly, I remember just eating it up last time.
Yeah.
So I just can't wait for it all. Everybody out there watching and wants to be involved in cannabis and really make good happen outside of the amazing great things that we can do with cannabis, how about we get it legalized? How about we decriminalize and get folks out of prison? Why don't we help our community grow? You can do it. If you have a phone, you have internet, you can do it. So thank you again, Kristi, for all the work that you do. And thank you for joining us over at the Greens podcast. And I will see you in a couple days, girl. I'm so excited.
Awesome. Thanks, Susie.
Bye-bye.